Hello everybody, I'm Irene and I have another Bible bedtime story for you today. It's another one about King Solomon. We've been hearing quite a lot of him, haven't we? But I think this is probably the very last one. I wonder whose story we'll hear about next. Just have to wait and see. Anyway, this one is about the time that he met the Queen of Sheba. But before we begin, let's get ourselves comfy in our PJs if we need to, and our favourite soft toys. Today I brought Elephant back again because he does so love stories, and he's got some of his friends. He's got a baby Gruffalo, he's got Gruffalo's friend the owl and the mouse. Have to keep a careful eye on them though, because elephants are sometimes afraid of mice, but this one's very good and I don't think he'll hurt him. I've also brought the big bad wolf, because even big bad wolves enjoy stories sometimes, and he's brought his friend who's the cow that jumped over the moon. Okay, you probably heard about him as well, haven't you? I'm going to move these ones a little bit further away so that I can reach my story properly, but they can hear just as well over there. Solomon and the Queen of Sheba. Sheba is the name of a country in Africa that we now call Ethiopia. Strange word, isn't it? Ethiopia. You might have heard about it on the news sometimes, but in those days it was called Sheba. And if you look at the map, you can see just how far away it is from Egypt and from where we live here in the UK. In biblical times, that's the time of our story, about 2,000 years ago, it was a very wealthy country. It had lots of spices, which people still use to make their food taste good. Let me see, what sort of spices do I like? I like pepper, that's a spice, and I like things like cumin seeds, and I like all of the ones that go into things like curry, but I also like some of the ones like cinnamon and so on. I think probably you know quite a lot of spices too. Maybe your carer, your mum or dad, can show you some spices that you have in your cupboard, and you can have a smell and see how good they smell. They also had lots of gold and juniper wood. A juniper is a kind of tree, and its wood is very highly prized. And the thing that's important about it is it's got a natural insecticide inside it, which means that none of those little bugs can get to it and eat it away so that things fall down. It's also pretty good if you're wanting to make things like musical instruments. So lots of really interesting and exotic things that they didn't have in Egypt. The Queen's name was Makeda, and she was both beautiful and very wise, just like Solomon. Lots of rulers throughout the world had heard of Solomon, and they were really interested in Israel and what made Solomon so successful. Because he was so rich and powerful, and his people were too, and they were happy. Makeda was one of them. She'd heard about Solomon, and she wanted to know just how wise he really was, if he was as wise as her. She spent some time to make up some really hard questions that she knew the answers to, but that she didn't think he would. They were even harder than the ones on, let me see, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, which are really hard. She maybe also wanted to improve her own wisdom, or to talk with him about how she could do things differently in her own country and be a better queen. When she was ready, she had everything she needed. She travelled to Jerusalem in Israel, where he lived, to meet him, and she took lots and lots of servants with her, and camels that were absolutely laden with gold and juniper and jewels and spices to show him how important and rich she was. Camels were the main way of carrying things for long distances then. Why do you think that might be? Well, Camels can travel for long, long distances. They don't need to have water every day if there's none there for them. They can go for days without. And they can carry about 1/2 ton on their backs. That's about 5 men, big men in weight. Or maybe even a half a car. It's a lot of weight, isn't it? Now, and he had a whole train of them, don't forget. So very, very heavy, very packed, masses and masses of things that she was taking. Do you remember that when Solomon asked God what he wanted most when he first became king? It's quite a few weeks ago now, wasn't it? But that's right, he said he wanted wisdom more than anything else, and God was so pleased with him because he hadn't asked for riches, he hadn't asked for power, he hadn't asked for being king of the whole world. He just wanted wisdom, and God had given him the wisdom. So when the Queen Makeda asked Solomon her questions, he was able to answer and explain every single one of them. So even when she asked a very, very important question, or a very hard one, or one that was something about her kingdom that she wasn't really very sure about at all, Solomon was able to give her a good answer, and he could explain it to her and why that was the best answer. So she was very pleased as well, and she agreed he must be very, very, very wise to be able to do that. And she'd also, while she was doing that, she'd been looking at how Solomon used his wisdom to help other people and tell them about God. And she noticed that his people, especially his servants and his soldiers, used to like to stay in his company because they used to like to hear all of the wisdom that Solomon had to give. He was very popular. She was very lucky to be able to talk to him in that way, for him to be so clear about what was the right thing to do sometimes and how she might do that and why it was important. But do you know, we've got someone that we can talk to as well. And he's even wiser than Solomon. We can talk to him wherever we like and whenever we like. We don't have to go all the way to Jerusalem or anywhere else in the world. We can talk to this person at home. We can talk to him when we're in bed asleep or going to sleep. And we can talk to him while we're having fun with our toys. We can talk to him when we're feeling unhappy and when we're feeling happy. And we can ask him what we should do when we're a bit confused or we don't really know. Who do you think that might be? That's right, it's God. He's always there. He's always there waiting for us to talk to him. Do you know what the special name is for when we talk to God? That's right, it's praying. So when we pray, that's what we're doing. We can talk to God, and we can do it absolutely anywhere, wherever we feel we need to. We can even do it in school if something's a bit tricky and we want him to help us with it. Well, Solomon didn't just talk to her. He showed her around his magnificent palace and the temple of the Lord that he built. And we've heard about those before, haven't we? And she saw all the important and wise people around him and the wonderful food that everybody was able to eat. She saw the servants who served the great feasts and the offerings that he made in the temple. Well, she was amazed. She had never seen such wealth and beauty in all her life, not even in her own country of Sheba. She was very, very impressed. But the thing that impressed her most was the way that when he went to the temple to pray to God, he was very humble. He truly loved God, and he took the worship of him very, very seriously. He didn't act like a king, all full of importance and pomp, but he was very humble. And he spoke gently to God to ask him for the things that he needed to. The Queen had never seen anything like it. She'd never seen his wisdom and worship, and it left her amazed, absolutely amazed. And she said to Solomon, I heard in my own country about your achievements and your wisdom, and I didn't really believe it. But I can see that it's true. I can see it's true because I've seen it with my own eyes. What I was told wasn't even half of it. You are much, much, much greater and wiser than anybody who's never met you will know. Your wisdom and your wealth are much greater than that. Your men and your officers are really lucky because when they're serving you, they can hear all your wisdom. Praise the Lord your God. He was pleased to make you king of Israel. He loves Israel and made you king to keep justice and rule fairly. All the blessings in Solomon's life had come from where? Why had everything worked out so well for him when maybe other kings in other countries were struggling? That's right, because he put his trust in God. And he'd asked God for the wisest and most wonderful gift of all. And that's wisdom. Because wisdom tells you what something is. It lets you answer hard questions. And one of the hardest ones is helping you to know when something is right and when something is wrong. Helping you make decisions about which is which. Then she gave him a gift. She gave him 120 talents of gold. Not sure what a talent is and how much money that would be, but I do know that's how they used to measure gold in Israel at this time. And I know that if it was measured that way then, it would be worth over £2 million today. Quite some gift, isn't it? Can you imagine? That great long train of camels going all that great distance to meet the man that she'd never met, and she felt he was so important and so brilliant that in her gifts she gave him the equivalent of £2 million. She also gave him all the other precious things that she'd brought with her, like the jewels and the spices, and also the special wood. Solomon used the juniper to make musical instruments and support pillars for his palace and the temple, because remember, it was a natural insecticide and all those bugs that like to eat wood wouldn't eat juniper. So the temple would stay standing really firm for longer. He must have been very, very happy with her gifts. So, like kings and queens and people of royalty and anyone who's really important does, or even somebody who's coming to your house to meet you or to dinner or to stay over, often they bring gifts with them, don't they? Maybe something very small like a bottle of wine or some chocolates or some flowers, something like that. But kings and queens tend to give each other very big gifts, as we've just seen Queen Makeda, the Queen of Sheba, do. Well, Solomon gave the queen gifts too. Gifts that one ruler would give to another, and whatever else she asked for. The most precious gift he gave her was his knowledge of God and how to serve him. The Queen of Sheba went home again with her servants and the gifts that Solomon had given her, the greatest being the knowledge he had of God and the greatest gift any of us can share. I hope you remember to share the gift of the knowledge of God to those people that you love and that you meet sometimes. And I hope that sometimes you talk to God. Remember, he's never too busy. He's always willing to listen and to help you to sort out what you're going to do. Because that's usually what he does, isn't it? He doesn't say, oh, you need to do this or you need to do that. Go and do it quickly. I told you so. He tends to just be a voice in our head that says, you can sort this. Think about it. How are you going to do it? And he helps you to come up with solutions, things that will work for you. I hope you've enjoyed my story today. I'll see you again soon. Did you enjoy the story, Elephant? I'm sure you did. You always like stories, don't you? And how about you, Big Bad Wolf? Was it good coming to story time today, Bible story time? Yes, I think he enjoyed it too, didn't he? But you know what? Oh, I'm very tired now. It's way past my bedtime. Time to snuggle down and go to sleep. Good night.